Hi everyone, buenos días o noches donde quiera que te encuentres. Welcome to Bailando con los Espíritus, where we'll be talking about some scary stories de Guanajuato and Mexico. Thank you again for joining me today. As always, I am your host, La Bruja Mayor. And today I bring you one of the most traumatizing stories I ever heard when I was growing up. So let's start. The location of this area that I'm going to be talking about, it kind of has different areas from different little situations that happen. But the main area that I want you to have in mind is this little ranchito called El Mezquite Gordo. So remember, I am from Cruz de Aguilar, and we always talk about Romita because that's the main little city that we would go to get groceries or, do the main thing. If you wanted to get married, you would go over there and get married. And if you had a baby and you wanted to have them register, you would go also to Romita. And Mezquite Gordo kind of runs down that I guess you call it freeway that takes you to Irapuato. I guess another ranchito that I want you to keep in mind as well is Guadalupe de Paso Blanco. And that one again runs that way too. So it's like, okay, so we're in a rancho, right? Let me just quickly explain to you how you will get there. We're in a rancho. We take the first street that goes to the main street, which is a highway. Then you take the highway to Romita. You take it, I guess, te desvías. And then you take all the way to that highway that takes you, it goes through Mezquite Gordo, and then it goes through a bunch of ranchos, and then it goes through Guadalupe de Paso Blanco, and it takes you directly to Irapuato. And that's just for you to have a reference on where all the things are gonna happen. The time. Well, this happened when I was young and I was in elementary school and I was in Mexico. So the time is in 2006. About 15 years. Okay? Another thing to keep in mind is that during this time, it was summer and the beginning starts in El Cruz de Aguilar, my rancho. So let's get into it. So, my grandma, Ima Flor, and I would always go and pretty much had conversations about her past, and while she did her little servilletitas. Y en México se usa mucho hacer servilletitas para vender. They would put so much effort so that they could sell them out and have some income. Y mi abuelita hacía eso. Tejía con sus agujas grandes o sus agujas chiquitas. And whenever she would be tejiendo, I would be right next to her listening to her stories. And sometimes she would just knock out. But I love those little moments I had with my grandma. And it was every so often, sometimes it was in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, or en la noche, dependiendo de cuando estaba tejiendo. And this time around, we were around, I'll say 2 p.m., 3 p.m. So it was still pretty sunny. And it was such a beautiful day. And it was in the middle of the week too. And my grandma and I, we were just talking. And during this time, there was no way that it was gonna rain or it was foggy or anything. It was just such a beautiful day, sunny day. And en ese entonces, cuando mi abuelita me estaba contando una historia, ella y yo estábamos solas, que llega una nube súper negra, así tapó de repente todo. And it was so crazy porque te digo, no estaba una nube para llover, no estaba nada más. Boom, llegó la nube, tapó todo, and it was a pretty scary nube too. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it was very, very, you see clouds that are grayish, and then you're like, oh, it's gonna rain. But this one, it was like pure black, just tapando todo. And there was no fires around the area. There was nothing. It was just that. It lasted for about 15 minutes. Todo se oscureció. And don't think that it was a eclipse, because it was not. It was just that big nube nos tapó 15 minutos, and then boom, it went away, back to being sunny, back to being like pretty nice. And we were like, oh, like what happened? Or why does this happen, you know? Anyways, this is part 1 of the story. So keep in mind, this happened in the middle of the week during the day. Okay? So then, in part 2, it was a Friday, and I was getting ready to go with my mom to Romita, because my dad sent us some money, so we were gonna go and get money and get groceries and blah blah blah, right? And this is the part when I was trying to tell you that I was trying to research in the newspaper. Okay? So when I went with my mom, I was such a curious kid. Like, I would read everything and anything. There was always little bibliotecas, or no bibliotecas, donde puestos de libros, always during the outside. Okay, so déjame te digo cómo se mira, más o menos. Let me just give you the best description that I can give you. So, when you get into Romita, there's this main place that has a kiosk in the middle. Then around that kiosk, there's a bunch of small stores. It could be ice cream, it could be like zapaterias, it could be bancos, it could be like clinics, anything. Right across from that, there's the big church. You know, where everybody goes. And again, this is a Catholic church. They would have like books and stuff like that. And again, they would also have books for brujería and all that. I already talked to you about that. And they have periódicos. And I couldn't find the name of the periódico or newspaper that I read it from. But it just said in big, bold, 3 muchachas habían jugado la ouija y 2 de ellas habían muerto. Y una de ellas estaba gravemente en el hospital. Well, when I read that, I was like, what the heck? And it was the same week. So, everything happened within the same week. Okay, so now, of the same story. So, it just happened in different events, you know, and I made the connection at the very end, because I didn't know that all of this was connected. En ese lugar que se llama Mezquite Gordo, my mom had padrinos de boda from there. And she never really visited them, but instead she visited a lot her madrina de bautizo en Guadalupe de Paso Blanco. Y no fue hasta que fuimos a visitar a los padrinos de bautizo que le contaron toda la historia de lo que había sucedido. My mom, she was not even, like, I was the one curious and paying attention, you know? And I at the end, I eventually came out with the conclusion that they were somewhat connected. Mom never really had a lot of connection with los padrinos de boda. Nunca les habló bien. O era como lejanos, padrinos lejanos, you know, que vienen, te ayudan, and then, like, they just disappear, I guess. When we went to visit los padrinos de bautizo en Guadalupe de Paso, they were the ones that told us that 3 girls had played that game, and that 2 of them died. And to be more realistic, I'm gonna give them names. Okay? So, the girl number 1, we'll call her Claudia. Number 2, we're gonna call her Lupe. And number 3, Angel. And this is just to establish the story. Para que tengan una idea. Because sometimes I feel that I tell you the stories, but if I don't have names, if I don't have dates, if I don't have locations, it kind of goes and it doesn't have a good flow. So, these girls, Claudia, Lupe, and Angel, decided to play the Ouija. I'm just trying not to say that word porque sí me asusta. And then, so they decided to play the game. They decided to use a abandoned house. Y ellos los hicieron throughout the day, if that makes sense. Al principio, porque usaron libros que no voy a... Usaron 3 libros que no voy a mencionar aquí. Because cuando te cuento esas historias, si empiezas a sugestionarte, then you're gonna think that there's things happening around you. And that's not what we want. Después de esto, que usaron estos 3 libros, usaron velas, dibujaron una estrella, ya sabes, todo, la situación ahí. Y ellos lo que querían eran lujos y dinero, como siempre. Esas 3 muchachas estaban en preparatoria, en high school, 16, 17. Y como estaban, they were setting everything up. Todo estaba. And then that's when they were like, it was in the middle of the week. And that's when I did my first connection. I was like, oh my god. In the middle of the week, I remember there was this big black cloud that came over us. And when they said las 3 muchachas, que 2 se habían muerto, I'm like, second connection. The newspaper. These 3 girls did everything they had to do throughout the day. They brought the evil, and once the evil appeared to them, they were able to see the evil in their eyes, or whatever it was. Y el susto era tan fuerte que era el susto que a 2 de ellas le dio un infarto. Porque no esperaban mirarlo. I don't know what they were expecting, pero no esperaban que se les iba a aparecer enfrente y que lo iban a mirar. La tercera muchacha que miró a... I don't know, whatever it was. She just went crazy. And initially, they found her in that house going crazy, doing weird things. It was very disturbing when they found her. And when they found her, they were asking her questions in nada. And so the people that found them, they eventually realized, oh, this is what they did. Right? Because they saw all the setup and everything. Instead of taking that girl to the hospital, you already know, they instead decided to take her to the church and take that evil that she had within, porque she was starting to act pretty weird. La llevaron a la iglesia, le hicieron oraciones y nada. And so then they were like, oh, what if this is not related to what they were doing? But it was just not what they were saying, I guess, because they saw the whole setup, so they were like, it has to be, you know. But either way, they still took her to the hospital. La checaron, no le encontraron nada, solamente le dijeron que tenía un trastorno mental. And so they took her to a psychiatrist y ya le estaban tratando de ayudar, right? So she started hearing voices and seeing things, and eventually she died not so long from that time. Y solo sus historias quedaron marcadas. Again, todo esto fue contado por la madrina de my mom, and it's just terrifying to think that these girls went ahead and did the whole thing of buying the bugs, getting the velas, drawing the whatever it is, the symbols, and clamming to the evil to come and give them whatever they wanted. Porque a las meras últimas, look what happened. And it's just so sad that people don't believe in these things. And cada quien, you know, I'm not gonna say, oh, créelo. But It's just to be aware and be careful that these things do exist, and I mean, you could either go crazy or get hurt. And yeah, so that was the little story I had for you guys. I always talk about this. Well, I've been talking about this story and wanting to tell you the story, but it's because it was so disturbing when I first heard it. I was like, oh my god. And when I was trying to make the connections, I was like, oh, sí, ya me acordé, la nube, el periódico. I mean, why would they be lying? ¿Me entiendes? Como cuando me estaban diciendo la historia. Pues sí, porque yo miré. Porque yo estuve ahí cuando estaba leyendo el periódico. Y yo sé que es verdad. Y cómo se supo que la otra muchacha se murió, pues I was so intrigued, I guess, that I just kept reading that same periódico. And it was a local newspaper too. Don't think it was like one of those big newspapers que habla de todas las ciudades ni nada de eso. It was pretty intense. And I will never forget this story. And I wanted to share it with you because I find it crazy to think that just one of those things could start so many chaos. And so yeah, that was my story for today. I hope you liked it. I hope you heard my previous stories too. I hope you like El Día de los Muertos as well. Please, if you haven't listened to that one, I will recommend you to go back to episode 5 and listen to Día de los Muertos. I love that story too. And stay tuned. I will drop another story this upcoming weekend. I apologize for not giving you something last week. But we're back to a regular schedule, and Freddie couldn't be with us right now because he's studying for his finals, and we want him to do his best, right? But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you come back again, subscribe, comment, send me your stories, send me everything that you got. I'll share them with everyone here. And yeah, thank you again, and see you in the next one.